Today I have the pleasure of introducing today's guest speaker. He served in our country's glory-drenched infantry, 15th Infantry Regiment from 1994 to 1998. He is a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars for time served in Bosnia as an infantry fire team leader. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you Canyon Lake's very own Coach Sergeant Levi Montgomery.
Explanation as to what I'm doing up here. I know when I come to these assemblies, I'm always hoping, somebody like Schwarzkopf or Colin Powell, somebody will show up, and they had somebody good lined up, but they had a commitment. So we're in the weight room yesterday, 7th period football, and these two boys here, where are we at?
He's over there.
Where's the two boys went to the weight room yesterday? That one there. They come in and they got a look of distress on their face. I'm gonna be honest with you. And First Sergeant and the Colonel, one of them, had sent them there because they didn't have a speaker and they needed one. So they started looking for veterans, and I happened to be the first one they run into. And I know all my students appreciate the opportunity to listen to me run my mouth for a little bit. And last night I went home and I'm trying to write down what to say. And, the boys told me about 10 minutes or so. I said, well, I can get to talking a little more. And I'm on the computer and I'm kind of typing, figuring out what I'm going to say. And, of course, I got a 17-year-old that lives in the house with me. Basically, he told me, he said, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to listen to you anyway. I did come up with a few things I'd like to cover with you. And, of course, this is going to be more directed to the young people in here and what I'm asking you to do. I'm going to start off by telling you that there's no way that I could have a platform like this in front of all these people and not speak about a generation of Americans that in many people's mind literally saved the world and our way of life. That, of course, I'm talking about the greatest generation, as they've been known as. To understand why this generation of people is known as the greatest generation, we need to understand that, where they came from. Me personally, my grandfather, he was born in 1920. He got to spend his childhood in the Great Depression. And that's what these men and women did. They grew up in probably the toughest economic times our country's ever seen. They endured hardships that few of us know today. So they grow up, and then, they're going to have a challenge for them. I believe President Roosevelt said that they had a rendezvous with destiny, and they had to go meet it. And, I guess they didn't want to, but nonetheless, perhaps their childhood growing up in the Great Depression made them ready. And on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, the Empire of Japan bombed American naval and air forces at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The United States of America was now thrust into the most horrific and costly war that mankind has ever known. This generation that grew up in the Great Depression was now being asked to go off and confront an evil that we don't understand. I know as history teachers we attempt to do a job of trying to explain what the Nazis were like, what the Japanese were like. When you go through that and read what happened at the Bataan Death March, and then you understand what type of enemy that this generation was asked to defeat. Of course, we know about concentration camps, but don't forget that and you understand what these men were asked to do. When 9/11 happened, we seem to draw comparisons about 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. And I understand there's something there in that our nation was attacked. But if you look at it historically, it was really different. The reason was, after Pearl Harbor was attacked, if you were a healthy fighting man that lived in the United States of America and you were of age, you went off to war. There were 16-year-olds lied about their age so they could go fight. That's what you did. If you were healthy and if you were of fighting age, in World War II, you went off to war. We as a nation, perhaps we've not been asked to sacrifice near what we think we have. We get inconvenienced at an airport. that's about the extent of it as far as a civilian population. So I want you to understand, when you talk about this greatest generation, they were all in. They were all in. The women that stayed at home, they went to work in the factories. This generation, they were all in, and they had to defeat an enemy unlike the world's ever seen. It was the greatest military endeavor our nation would ever fight in, and just to give you numbers, over 16 million Americans would eventually fight in World War II. And more than 400,000 members of this greatest generation would lose their lives fighting to make sure that our nation did not perish from the face of the earth. And that's what we were up against. Had we lost the war, I shudder to think what our lives would have been like. In that generation, they did it. As a history teacher and somebody whose grandfather was in the war, and somebody who's trying to fight the good fight of shaping young people now, you kind of wonder at times, what did that generation have that we don't have? And I'd like to relay some of the words of perhaps one of its bravest members. And I'm just going to read this, so please bear with me. A Marine by the name of Mitchell Page was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions at the Battle of Guadalcanal on October the 26th, 1942. On that day, Page single-handedly repelled an entire Japanese regiment using 4 machine guns after all of his fellow Marines had either been killed or they were too wounded to fight. In the years after the war, Page was often asked why he was willing to put his life on the line for his country. He said that the answers took him back to a Pennsylvania 3-room country schoolhouse where the children were so familiar with the history and the traditions of the United States of America that they literally felt themselves to be a part of a glorious heritage. Every day, his teacher would open the school day with a Bible verse and the Pledge of Allegiance. They would all memorize the great documents that established the bedrock of America. Page said, this is a direct quote from him, he said, "My undying love of country and my strong loyalty to the Marines fighting by my side gave me no choice but to fight on throughout my battles, utilizing my God-given ability to make use of what I had been taught and learned." Now, before the war, Page, he joined the Marines before the war started. And as he left, he walked 200 miles to the nearest recruiting station so he could join the Marines. And his mama packed him a lunch, and he found later inside that lunch was a note from his mother. The note said, "Trust in the Lord, son, and he will guide you always." Page said that those words from his mother stayed with him forever, and when fear would overtake him, he could always find comfort in his mother's words. Page would later then recall what took place on Guadalcanal. Again, it's a direct quote from him. He said, "I will never forget sitting in a foxhole, bloody, burned, and injured the morning after our all-night, fierce, hand-to-hand battle against an overwhelming Japanese force on Guadalcanal. I was alone except for hundreds of dead bodies of the enemy surrounding me. I emptied my pack looking for something to stop the bleeding from a bayonet wound I had received. Opened his pack, out fell a small Bible. Picking up the Bible in my dirty, bloody hands, I could scarcely believe it when opened up at Proverbs 3, and there were my mother's words. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths." Mitchell Page and millions of other members of this greatest generation were true servants and patriots of America. They were, in fact, the generation that saved the world. And we'll continue to talk about this in a bit. But as young people, I can't tell you enough. Again, regardless of what you hear in history class and that, this is truly something we wouldn't be sitting here right now had it not been for that generation. And we need to never forget that. And again, I want to shift my attention to the young folks in the room. You fast forward to today. There's a lot of people that believe that our strength as a nation has been eroding since World War II. What I did not too long ago is I asked the students in my class to go find what I refer to as an elder American. I told them the older the better. Go find one and ask them a series of questions. I want you to ask them, was it better back in the good old days? Were we as a nation a harder working people? Were we as a nation a tougher people? Were we as a nation a stronger people when it came to morals? Did we have a better moral compass? Nearly every single student the person they interviewed said yes. Back in a simpler time, we were a stronger nation. We did have a better work ethic. We were tougher. We had a stronger moral compass, almost to a man. You know, and you know, I suppose you can agree or disagree with that, but I'm just telling you what those interviewed said. And to try to make a little light of this, you know, it made me think, and we always talk about this, you know, as somebody who deals with young people on a daily basis, and a former military man, you worry about, are we as a nation getting soft? And I was thinking this morning on how I could best describe this to you, because I think it's happening. And it just kind of hit me this morning on the way to school. There's a great American and a poet that put it a certain way. Very famous guy. His name is Brad Paisley. And I thought about a song that it was in 2007. Paisley came out with this song, really about our culture. And he was on the radio and it went to #1. Why did it go to #1? Well, I guess a lot of people could identify with it, and maybe there's some truth to it. And y'all just humor me as I read some of the lyrics, and y'all can tell me perhaps you agree or disagree. If you know it, if you know the song, you know, feel free to say some of the lyrics with me. And he's talking about men here. He's talking about American men right now in our culture. And of course, he's singing this song to his girlfriend. I said, when you see a deer, you see Bambi, and I see animals up on the wall. When you see a lake, you think picnic, and I see a large mouth up under that log. You probably think that you're going to change me in some ways. Well, maybe you might scrub me down, dress me up, but no matter what, I'm still a guy. Well, love can make a man do some things he ain't proud of, and in a weak moment I might walk your sissy dog, hold your purse at the mall, but remember, I'm still a guy. I can hear you talking now to your friends saying, yeah, girls, he's come a long way, from dragging his knuckles and carrying a club and building a fire in a cave. And he finishes the song with, you know, these days there's dudes getting facials, manicured, waxed, and Botox, with deep spray on tans and creamy lotion in his hands, who can't even grip a tackle box. He says that now, you know, in our culture, it's hip to be feminized all of a sudden. And he finishes the song with, he says, oh, my eyebrows ain't plucked, there's a gun in my truck, oh, thank God, I'm still a guy. He's talking about a culture. I know you can go talk to any older man and you know, talk about that. Yeah, maybe we were tough. I believe y'all were tougher than we were. It's the truth. You know, that may be true, but I want you all to be rest assured that there's still some tough American soldiers on guard right now. Yeah. I can tell you without a doubt that past and present members of the United States military still value qualities like discipline, hard work, loyalty, duty, honor, sacrifice, and good old-fashioned toughness. I want you all to understand that the life of a soldier is not easy. It's hard on the service members, and often it's harder on their families. In particular, if you get a wife that's raising kids when her husband's off, and in some cases it's the husband at home, because that's harder on them perhaps. Understand now that as I speak to you right now, that there's soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines on duty. There's some guys standing a post in South Korea right now. There's some guys in Afghanistan right now standing a post. There's men and women on ships all around the world right now standing a post. Right now, as we sit in this auditorium. The thing you need to understand is a lot of these men and women are not much older than you all right now. Had this be World War II, many of you young men that are sitting in this seat right would be gone. You'd be in the Pacific or you'd be in Germany. in Europe preparing to go defeat Germany. We need to understand that. It's also very serious that our generation understand that in places like Afghanistan, there are service men, perhaps women, in Afghanistan right now that are not going to come home. That's the way it is. There are service members all over the world doing their part to make sure that the wolf doesn't get on the back porch. It's an ugly business, but it's got to be done. When there are wars, people will die. That is the cold, terrible, awful truth. And get to you young people specifically, war is not a video game. War is not a movie. It's God-awful and it's real. And you need to understand that and be involved in what our country's doing. I only speak to you all so bluntly so that we never lose sight of the sacrifice that all veterans have made for our nation. When a man or woman has the guts to raise their right hand and join the military, they deserve our admiration, our support, and our eternal gratitude. So as I close with you today, I want to leave you with a couple of requests from me. The first thing is I want you to try to seek out a surviving World War II veteran. I can't reiterate it enough that this group, this greatest generation, saved the world. And they're leaving us on a rapid basis. They're aging, and they're not going to be with us much longer. So I encourage you all, find one. Find a member of the greatest generation and thank them for what they've done. Able to do that, find other veterans as well. There are many veterans that fought in Korea and Vietnam that never got their due thanks and support from our nation. We owe it to them to do that as well. Find one. Find a veteran. Give your genuine thanks to them. I ask that you do that. Second thing I ask that you do is get involved with our country. This is our country. It's your country. We are blessed to live in the greatest and most prosperous nation that this world has ever known. We don't want it. We don't want it to slip away on our watch. But I ask you to seek out an American, an older American that you admire, and ask them, as a young person, what should I do to help me get my nation on track? Keep it on track. We don't want to let this slip away on our watch. People like this gentleman in the front row did too much. His generation did too much for us just to slip it all away. And I'm telling you, if we as a community, if we don't do it here in our local community, if we're waiting on politicians and them to do it right, it's not going to get done. It's got to start here. It's got to start here in Canyon Lake. I always tell the football boys, you know, this is by God Canyon Lake, America. This is the greatest place on earth. Yeah. We need to work. Things that you can do now is get involved in your community, talk to people you admire, get involved in a church. The changes are going to come from the ground up. They're not going to come from way up there. So again, as young people, appreciate what's been done for you and do everything you can to get involved. You know, get outside, get some sunshine on your face, felt you, a little air in your lungs. Do that, and you know when it's all said and done, we need to thank God for our freedom, and we need to thank the men and women that are willing to defend it. Appreciate y'all.